Yep, it's recording.
Okay, then I'm going to call our village board meeting for July 18th, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Nyla Fry.
Here.
Gary Gersberg.
Here.
Phil Willems.
Here.
Chris Zellner.
Here.
Aaron Moran. Here. Bill Zisselsberger.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Okay, first thing is confirmation of open meeting compliance, public postings, official notices, and online availability. Carla.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on 7/15/22. The final agenda was posted in all three official posting locations on 7/13 and 7/14. And the final agenda and packet were made available online on 7/13/2022.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I have a couple important requests, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. For our audience members, please sign in on the sign-in sheet with your name, address, and municipality for accurate record keeping. And also for those interested in participating in the public comment or public hearing portion, which we don't have a public hearing tonight, please fill out the correct form and on the podium and return it to me prior to the applicable agenda. Thank you.
One additional item of logistics, our camera system, our typical recording system is down this evening due to equipment failure. We have a backup camera. The microphones are going to do you no good for recording to that, so my advice would be to speak up, perhaps more than usual, so this camera can try to do its best to pick you up this evening.
So I should be going, hello, 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 or anything like that?
That won't help you.
All right,
That won't.
all right.
But it's fun to watch you do it.
All right, thank you.
But at least your green light's on.
Okay, all right, next we have our consent agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled, or I'd look for a motion?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Phil, second by Nyla Fry. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment, is there anyone here who would like to address the board on an issue on or off the agenda this evening? Todd?
I do have two written comments, and Chris, if you'd like them read now, I'll hand them to you. They're related, they're from WNC and the food pantry related to that item on the agenda. Would you like to read them at this point or at that item on the agenda?
I think we'll read them during the agenda item.
Okay.
Is that
All right.
good?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments?
Am I allowed to make a public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about this. I had called staff to ask about this, and I didn't want to make this necessarily related to the police committee appointment that we just had, because I support Chris being on the police committee. But I think that we should be looking at what sort of makeup we have on our committees. I've been noticing and kind of looked past, done this a few times and then haven't really brought it up, but we just have like not a lot of women on a lot of our committees, and I didn't even really notice that because a lot of the committees I'm on, there's a lot of women on. Library board, we're now fully all women, and we just have and obviously those change year to year, but I don't know if we're not getting a lot of applicants that are women or if there's something we can do like that. So that's my comment, I guess.
Okay.
I think I would say that's definitely worth reviewing as part of our ongoing efforts to promote DEI in our community. I don't think we've taken a close look at our policy related to committee appointments. I think it's worth taking a careful look.
I guess I have noticed sometimes it's like when we're appointing not in the full scope on the usual April or May, whatever, that sometimes it can change.
So since I can't comment on public comments, I would say maybe we want to look at this at a future meeting and talk about our appointments and what the process is for those and how we get in applications.
We can.
That would be appropriate. Okay?
Agree.
All right, any other public comments? I'll make one, since I can announce it now. So August 20th, as everybody knows, our 4th of July was canceled for weather, safety, keeping our park okay, all those kinds of things, reasons. And so we've rescheduled that for August 20th. It'll be a much less version of what we would have had on the 4th of July, but still a great fireworks show, movie in the park, food carts, those things will be there, just not all the different features. There will be no bands or beer tents or some of the kids' functions. So, but it's going to be a great event for the community to come out and see one another and just have a great time. So just putting that out there so everybody knows. On the board too, the committee was a little stressed about it the day out, and the days following to get everything pulled together is not an easy task. So we were able to do that though. So happy to report that. All right, we have a little change in our schedule. We're going to be moving number 2 under business items first. So before our presentations, so we're going to discuss and take action on proposal for mural design on South Street sidewalk wall.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Joel Lewis. He's a member of the Waunakee committee and has led the subgroup looking at a mural project there. So Joel, I think you have a intro. You're welcome to come up if you like.
All right, so good evening. How's everyone doing? Again, like Todd said, my name is Joel Lewis. So the goal today is to present the board with what we've been doing and to get approval on the mural design. Let me just kind of give you a little history with that. So before on that wall, I don't know if you remember the chalk design that we had. The community really came together when that happened. And obviously it's been, the pandemic came and then we kind of just had a hiatus with the wall. But the goal for that wall was to be able to do something on that wall that would bring our community together. Like Todd said, I'm part of the Waunakee committee, and what I did was I led a subcommittee group of people who were from the community to be able to be involved in the wall design, because we wanted this to be a community project. So we put it out, we had people respond. It was a good response, but as we were having our meetings, people fell off. The people who were like really interested meeting, we kept meeting. So it was awesome because we got some really talented people in the committee to be part of this mural project. One person's an art teacher. She works for the Waunakee School District, and she's at Heritage. And it's great because we were able to get her just sense of design, sense of like how things work, because I don't know how to paint. She was the one who kind of like tied it all together. And then we had students. So we wanted to figure out how we were going to get feedback from the community about what we should put on the wall. So one of the ideas was to, while it was during the school year, we actually sent something out into the school itself. And basically it was, and you'll see it on the presentation, of so the hashtag Stronger Together 53597 is what we chose as our theme. So that's the theme we looked at. So then what we did was we wanted to know what students felt Stronger Together meant to them. So we sent that into the school, and they were able to draw a picture, and they were actually able to write something, which was awesome. So basically, I think it was like over 200 and something responses that we received from students, and from that is where we had other students who are on the committee kind of compile it and go through and get themes, and then that's how we figured out what we want the actual wall to be. So what you're going to be seeing is that process and what the wall is going to be, or is going to be. So we did that. The other thing was that we realized that we don't know how long this might be on this wall, right? But we wanted to keep this in our community. So one of the goals, or one of the things we're trying to do, is we want to bind all of their responses into a book, and we want to donate that to the library as well, so then people in the community can actually see what the process is. We actually have, for Instagram, that's what that is for people who don't know, so if you go to hashtag Stronger Together 53597, you'll actually see the progress of us going through the process. We always ask people to just go to that hashtag, and then you'll kind of see what's going on. We have stuff there posted now, but it's also a way for people to communicate with us regarding this. So I'll let Todd press play, and we'll kind of just go through it, and then if you have questions afterwards, just let me know.
I wish it was easy as pressing play, but we'll make it through.
All right. All right, so wait, I'm sorry. I know I told you something different, Todd.
Yep.
So this is the design.
Do you want this as a recording? Do you want me to play the recording, or are you going to talk?
Yeah, after this, you can play the recording. I'm sorry. So this is the design. So this is what all the kids, when we came up with all the submissions, this is what was created. So this is what we want to put onto the wall. We feel like this encompasses our community. We feel like this is what brings us together. And we were looking for elements in the design that shows that. As with this coloring, the cool thing about it is it's paint by number, so it doesn't matter your level. So I'd be on the low level, but all you have to do, yellow is number one, you just have to paint it, so that means that the whole, the community can just come out and not have talent and be able to contribute. Okay, we go now, Todd.
Today we are presenting the final draft and sharing a small sample of the thoughtful responses that inspired us.
I'm going to keep playing these, so hold tight.
The Mural Committee started out coming up with themes this year. Common ground was found in the idea community is stronger together. We recognized the challenges and tragic events impacted everyone and wanted the process to be inclusive and support the whole community. Elementary and intermediate students used worksheets to respond to the poem, "What does stronger together mean to you?" To ensure that anyone of any ability could paint, the mural will be designed as a paint by number. We narrowed it down to popular images and ideas. Words that represent our theme: hands, rainbows and bright colors, diversity, and hearts.
Brian, are you enjoying all my gymnastics here I'm doing?
What does stronger together mean to you? That even though sometimes we want to be independent, as a team everyone has different strengths. With that team, almost anything is possible, but alone you probably could barely do one. Stronger together also means to me being different from one another and being able to make new friendships and accomplish big things. That's what really matters. It's not always about the difference that matters, it's how you handle it. You can work towards goals and or make big changes, but you need to have people to help you.
I think next couple are just some sample images without audio.
What does stronger together mean to you? To me, it means that together we can make a change or difference in the world. What does stronger together mean to you? A community banding together to make the world a better place. What does stronger together mean to you? One person alone sometimes cannot make a difference, but if more than one person helps and puts in effort, we can make a difference and change the community. We all have a voice and should use it, because alone we might not be able to make a difference, but together we are stronger than ever.
Do you want to pause here at all, Joel?
Yeah, so this is our final draft. So this is what we, like I said before, are looking to have. Over here, what we're going to do is we are going, because we want this to be an interactive wall, so we want to do like a selfie. So families or anybody in the community will be able to take a picture right here kind of just see a community be out of there, or it'll be pushed up. And then this way, you could take a selfie and then you could post it on hashtag Stronger Together 53597. So that's pretty much like the design. I do want to thank, you know, the students who actually like narrated this. They did an awesome job. This is
Just 2 more slides here.
Yep.
To document this project, we would like to create a book compiling the work and ideas of students.
Did you want to add to that, Joel?
Yeah, so this is what I was saying, that we want to actually have something, I mean, obviously the mural is tangible, but something that'll continue to go generation to generation type thing. And then we want to be able to present it, you know, to the library or give it to the library, however that looks. So kind of like this, there's going to be like people, you know, like stick figure type things, and that's where families, individuals can take selfies on the wall.
Everyone in the community is invited to stop and show their love by posting a picture to hashtag Stronger Together 53597.
I think one more slide here.
Okay. So the other cool thing is that we also realize that when we talk about like music, right, that's really important in Waunakee as well, right? So we talk about Village Park. So there's aspects on the wall that we want to incorporate too. So there's many different things that we want to put in there that would encompass what we are as a community. So that's really the design. That's really what we're trying to do. And like I said, the cool thing is that we also have people donating. The paint store across the street, they actually are going to donate the paint. It's just amazing how many people found out about this project and wanted to contribute and help in various ways. Time, you know, water when we go paint, that type of thing. So, is there any questions or anything that I can clear up?
Well, let's go back to that final design there, which is what the board's considering for approval tonight.
Yes.
Comments, questions, board members? Joel? Great. Adam?
I think it looks good. And thank you to the Create committee and to all the students and everyone who worked on this. It looks like a good project.
It was amazing because so we reached out to the school because obviously we needed permission because parents had to sign off before their kids were able to actually submit this stuff. So, but it was just awesome how many people were able to wanted to be involved. So.
Very cool.
Very good.
Okay. Comment?
I think this looks great. I'm curious, because it sounded like it was elementary and intermediate school. Any particular reason the high school was?
We tried. It's hard to get older kids.
Understandable.
And the reason why we were able to get the younger kids is because the art teacher, what she basically did was hand it to the other art teachers, and then they gave it out into the classroom, and you know, it's the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it's like kids are trying to get into college, like this is not their focus, even though we put it out. we tried, but you know, the cool thing is that they can still come out and paint, right? So I think, you know, everyone can be involved in this, but that's the reason why.
Okay, cool.
So.
That looks great.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, and this subcommittee, Fair and Keep, I feel like you did most of it on behalf of Fair and Keep, so thank you, Joel. This is awesome. A lot of people, yeah, I saw signed up already, paint and do stuff, so it's cool to see that.
We have a sign up Gina, was it Genie? Genius, or I'm a genie, right? 5 wishes. Where people can sign up to be able to, when we start, if it gets approved to start painting.
So I'll just say thank you, and for all the students, the inclusion is just right there.
Yeah.
Everybody in the community, and then the fact that you put it so everybody can participate on top of it. So I would say great job. So,
I make a motion, we give them a well done and adopt the mural.
I second it.
so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? So that motion was by Phil Owens and second by Nyla Fry. So the camera heard.
It's most important that she hears.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that.
Comments?
I'm curious, not that this should in any way change anything, but given the other potential uses for that building, I would assume that those groups are on board with this.
I did send,
I mean, it's a pretty safe assumption, I think.
I did a same question this morning.
Okay.
yeah, I sent the draft to both WNC and the food pantry, and both of them responded with terrific, wonderful,
Excellent.
very pleased with the design.
Good question. All right. Anything else? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Good job, Joe.
Thanks. Thank you, Todd.
All right, so then our next is update by County Executive Joe Parisi on major county initiatives, and I'll start by saying thank you for deferring, so we could get that done first. So you guys are wherever you'd like to be.
All right, wherever you'd like me. Scott's gonna push the button for me. We have some slides because I'm told people don't like to just look at me the whole time I'm talking. I tend to wander, so hopefully the slides will somewhat match what I'm talking about. I'll do my best. So yeah, it's great to see everyone. Thank you for having me in. I really appreciate it. It's good to be getting out. We're getting out into a lot of village boards and city councils and seeing people, and it's really nice to be able to be in touch again. So as you can imagine, when narrowing down, what issues to talk to people about, it can be kind of challenging because we're involved in so much in county government. But I wanted to talk to you certainly about lakes, because I know obviously for Waunakee that's an important issue, and a lot of our work that's been going on has been happening around Waunakee with some of our projects. Then I also want to talk to you a little bit about some of our work adapting to and addressing kind of the county's contribution to climate change, county governments. Because what we find is a lot of our lakes work is impacted by our changing climate and changing weather patterns. So I think we're going to start with the lakes, and Scott, if you want to go ahead and go to the, I think we're going to start with, this is the Dredging Project, right? This is the project by McFarland.
Yeah.
Okay, let me set this up a little bit. So as we saw in 2018, and the reason I talk about climate and the lakes being kind of connected, the flooding of 2018 really was eye-opening for all of us on a lot of levels. And a few years before that flooding, the county had partnered with the UW with their climate folks, with their meteorologists, to ask them if they could help us look at what to expect from climate change locally. We see the forest fires out west and things happening in other countries, but when we're looking at emergency response and other things, we wanted to know what we're going to be dealing with here in Dane County. And basically the report came back that we're going to have warmer and wetter weather. More 90-degree days, warmer winters, warmer and wetter springs, and more rain that comes down all at once, kind of like we saw in 2018. A lot more heavy rainfalls, a lot of volume. And the way that impacts our lakes work is because a lot of the lakes cleanup work that we do is around runoff and nutrients that get into the lake system. And as folks in Waunakee know, we have a lot of great partnerships with our local farmers working to address runoff in their crops and partnering with them to implement practices that reduce runoff. And those partnerships really have resulted in some really good changes. But one of the things that we found and I'm already going backwards from the slide, so I'll come around to this, is that some of the impacts of climate change are offsetting some of our gains dealing with runoff, because especially in the spring, when we get those heavier rains in the spring and it's warmer, before the crops get a really good chance to settle in, you get more runoff. Another thing that we're dealing with, in addition, so there's the runoff and how it impacts the lakes, and then there's the flooding aspect of it that I mentioned that I'll come back to, and that's where this video comes in. So in 2018, one of the problems that we had was so much rain came into the system so fast. Initially we had flash flooding in the streets and in streams and creeks, but then we saw the water back up in the chain of lakes, because as folks in this room know, we have a chain of 4 lakes connected by channels. I describe it sometimes as you think of 4 sinks connected by plumbing. And over the years, those channels, that plumbing has plugged up over the last 100 years, just from runoff. A lot of it, in this case, is construction site runoff. So as opposed to some of the sediment that we have with the issues from runoff from our yards and some farm fields, this is construction site runoff that gets into the channels that connect the lakes, and it's usually very sandy material. And when all of that water hits the lakes, and especially when it goes into Lake Mendota, it takes much longer for it to empty out of the chain of lakes than it used to. So we have slower emptying and more rain, which equals water backing up. We can open up all the locks and all the dams, and we still had flooding. So we embarked on a program to clear out those channels a few years ago. And so this is, we're going in, the first year we contracted with someone. It's very hard to find people who can come in and do dredging. We did find some in that first year. So what we did then the next year is we invested in our own dredger and hired people, county staff, who can run it. And we are in the process of emptying ththose channels between the lakes. We've been between Wabisa and Monona. Now we're over in McFarland between Wabisa and Mud Lake. Then we'll go down to the Stoughton area because we're kind of working downstream first before we go up and open up the channel between Mendota and Monona, because you don't want to open that up and send all that water down, obviously, if it can't get out. And in the case what you see here, this is in McFarland by Babcock Park. What we do is we take that, we dredge that material in two ways. We have a hydraulic dredge that we pipe into a pit that he'll show you that dries out the sand. Then we have a mechanical dredger also. And what's neat is because that material is so basically, like I said, pure sand and gravel, we're able to take it, and construction companies take it and use it underneath new parking lots they're building and roads and that sort of thing. So it's this built-in reuse that's really nice. So Scott, I think we could just play this.
We're having technical difficulties.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of a spoiler alert anyways. I told you what I was going to do. So just let me know when that's ready to roll.
Yeah, well,
it's not though, right?
It's not going to roll.
It's not going to roll. Well, if it was, what you'd see is that guy showing you everything I just told you, and it's really cool. But do we have to the other sides work?
Clicker's not working.
The clicker's not working.
No, the clicker's not working.
All right. Hold on here.
See?
Hold on a second.
People are going to have to look at me instead anyways.
All right, now it'll work. Does it?
No.
I'll just keep talking.
There we go.
Okay, so this is the stuff I was talking about here, these different phases of the lakes. Not to be confused with those out there, that's something else. That were phase 1 we did, phase 2 is in progress. Here's the work down by Lake Higanza. Then eventually we'll go up to phase 5. We have another few years left to do it. It takes quite a bit of time. But once that is all completed, we will be able to open up those locks, prevent a lot of the flooding that we've seen, especially as we see these increases in rain events. So we're really happy with that, really excited about being able to have better control over the lakes. Now the other piece of this you've seen, you're somewhat familiar with, I think, because Waunakee and Westport areas where some of it began, is what we refer to as our Suck the Muck program. I think I've talked to you about this before. This is not to do with moving water through the lakes. This is part of the nutrient reduction that I was talking about. So we're doing all these good practices with our farmers upstream, but for over a century, runoff has been going into the system. And especially before some of the more modern conservation practices were put into place decades and decades ago. And what we found was we're doing all this good work, but if we found in many of these streams that feed into the chain of lakes, sometimes there's 4 to 6 feet of this muck. And it's just, some of you, if you've ever waded into some of these streams, have maybe sunk in it, and it's phosphorus-laden muck. And so that phosphorus, while we're preventing it from going in, there's so much of it in the water already that it just continues to wash into the chain of lakes and create more algae. So we are going in, we started this a couple of years ago, and we are sucking the muck. We're sucking that out with a hydraulic dredge in a process that's similar to what we're doing in the middle here. And we started, let me see, we started in Dorn, we're in 6 Mile right now, we did Token Creek, then we have a couple others, and we've identified initially about 33 miles, I think it was, of streams. We're working in partnership with the DNR, and we're doing ongoing assessments. And so what we do with that material, we take that out, and if you look like up in Dorn Creek, you could see it, especially, it was really nice. We even re-meandered one of the streams that had been cut to drain right into the lake. And that helped during the flooding because that slowed down, even though that's not the main purpose. the water going back out into the lake. But what we do is we remove that muck, so we take the phosphorus out of the system, and it restores that habitat too, which is really nice for fish and for wildlife. And you go down to the streams and you can see the bottom, it goes down to the nice sand and gravel, sand and small rocks bottom that used to exist. And so we get the habitat restoration, we remove the phosphorus, and then we have our eye on where the phosphorus, where runoff still occurs, and we can try to set up kind of traps to make it easier to go back and do cleanup and not have to continue, go through this whole process again. So yeah, are we clicking? All right. So then another piece, I talked about some of our partnerships. They're both, as you know, both rural and urban sources of phosphorus runoff. And so we have our partnerships with our farmers to implement, practices that they want to, a whole bunch of really neat stuff that we do. And then we have a couple of other programs. We are a continuous cover program. This is something we piloted a few years ago just to see if there was interest in the farm community. And what this is for farmers who would like to return to rotational grazing. Say they're row cropping now and they want to do rotational grazing, or they have some land they'd rather not be planting that might be prone to runoff. What we do is we help them with a grant program convert, and they can convert some of that fragile land back to prairie. They can convert it to grasses that they can harvest, or they can convert it to grazing. And it was really neat. The farmer we worked with in our first year, he wanted to convert his farm that had been in the family to rotational grazing for his cattle. And he said, and so we went out there and he was showing me around. He said, "This is how my grandpa used to farm." And so, he's coming full circle. He's going from his, from his grandpa doing rotational grazing to growing crops, and now back to doing the grazing. And so that obviously helps, keep the soil in place. We get less runoff. It also sequesters carbon, so it's actually good for climate change too. It gets some of that carbon out of the atmosphere. And then we have, you're probably familiar with this, our urban water quality grants. And that's when we work with communities and we'll partner 50 to 75% in a grant to help replace old stormwater outfalls. So that's, so much of our stormwater system now. The stormwater sewer and the sanitary sewer are separate. So it rains, it goes down into the street, and there are pipes that go right into the lakes. And a lot of these are filled with sediment and debris and everything that washes off the streets and the lawn. And so we partner with communities to replace those and build stormwater detention ponds. So the water can go in and the sediment can settle out first, and then the cleaner water can be allowed to move. And then the other piece that we're doing, and this is both for looking at flood prevention and phosphorus runoff, we're looking for key areas that are sensitive to purchase and restore. So for example, we made a purchase in 2019 next to the Pheasant Branch Conservancy. A 160-acre farm was being sold, and it's in an area that's very sensitive both for nutrient runoff into the lake, because it's right over there by Pheasant Branch Creek, right by Lake Mendota, goes right into there. And also when it comes to flooding, it's a very sensitive area. So we purchased that property, and we're in the middle of a multi-year restoration. We restored a wetland and we're restoring it to prairie. And that will keep thousands of gallons of water on the ground when it rains, rather than going right into Lake Mendota, and really help with the flooding right there. Middleton had a lot of issues with flooding. And then it will also help keep nutrients in place, and we'll have less runoff. So those areas that are really sensitive, we're looking at purchasing and doing restoration. And again, when you do a prairie restoration, that sequesters carbon also. And so it's part of our climate change work. It's what interesting fact, an acre of prairie sequesters as much carbon as an acre of forested land. And I was surprised to know that, but it has such deep roots and it pulls the carbon into the soil. So a lot of benefits, a lot of different pieces goes into the work to keep our lakes from flooding and to try to deal with our algae challenges. So I'm going to switch real quickly to some of our climate work that we're doing. We're really proud. We are about to become the first county in the state and one of a few in the nation to generate 100%, to offset 100% of our electricity use for all of our facilities with renewable electricity. And the way we did this is first we invested in energy efficiency. There's a really great return on investment and payback in energy efficiency, usually just a few years. Then we started assessing our facilities for their ability to take solar. And right now we have 17 solar facilities, or solar arrays on different facilities. This one right here is really interesting. You may have seen it by the airport. It's a 9 megawatt solar field. And what we did there is we identified land. We looked for county land, and surrounding the airport, obviously you have a lot of land that would be good for solar. We found this parcel and we reached out to MG&E and we said, we will lease you this land at market rate if you'll build a solar field here, and in return we'll promise we will buy all of the electricity that it generates. So it was a guarantee for them, and the cost of solar has come down so much over the last few years that it's cheaper for utility to put up solar now than to invest in a coal plant or something like that. So it was a good deal for them. And then we said, and we'd really like to pay a little less than we're paying now for the electricity too, if you could manage that. And they did the math, and it worked for them. So that facility alone is offsetting 40% of the electricity that we use in county government, and we save over $100,000 a year just from that one project on our electric bill with no money out of pocket. So it was a great deal for the taxpayers and the community, good deal for the environment. And so all that got us pretty close, and we entered a similar deal, structured a little differently, but another deal with Alliant Energy to build an array about twice as big as that out by our landfill. And when that is complete, we will have 100% offset, and that should be kind of the beginning of next year. So we're really excited about that. Another neat thing we do is with the digesters that you all are familiar with, that have come a long way since they first started. What we have is the digesters now are using 100% manure, no food substrates, and they are using their gas that they generate in partnership with us. So what you see here, this is out at the county landfill. We built this a few years ago. This is over a $25 million project that takes the methane gas that's generated from the landfill, which is a very powerful greenhouse gas, much more than CO2. And it takes it and it cleans it and it compresses it to compress natural gas that we use as transportation fuel. And we use it both in county vehicles. We have about 100 county vehicles now that run on compressed natural gas. This renewable compressed natural gas costs us about $1.50 a gallon. It's the cleanest transportation fuel made. And so all those big, well, not all of them, we're getting there as we replace them. We replace them with CNG trucks. But so many of the highway trucks, for example, that you see, those big trucks that when they run on diesel, they get about 5 miles a gallon at 5 something a gallon now. Those run on compressed natural gas. And the highway folks love them, low emissions, saves taxpayers dollars. But we create much more gas than we can even use in county government, and so we sell the rest into there's a natural gas pipeline that runs literally through our property at the landfill. We got very lucky there, and Quick Trip buys it. You may have noticed some Quick Trip stations sell compressed natural gas for vehicle fuel. They buy a whole bunch of it from us. And then we also get money from renewable energy credits that people purchase to offset their emissions. And so that facility is paying for itself in just a few years, and it is bringing in a very healthy profit for Dean County taxpayers. So we're really excited about that. And the way that ties to our digesters, which again is both our climate work and our lakes work, because the digesters remove phosphorus before they do the digesting, and then that doesn't go back on the farm fields and run off into the streams. They've built little mini facilities like that, but they don't have natural gas pipelines going through their property, so they needed a place to be able to sell it. So when we built this, we built an offloading station so that people could truck in renewable natural gas and take advantage of the same economics that we're able to by selling it into the pipeline, because we wanted to help our digesters remain economically viable. We don't own them, as you know, it's a partnership between the farmers and the businesses, and we facilitated the partnership. And so we have them now. They're making their natural gas, cleaning it, and trucking it in so that they can take advantage of the same opportunity, and the environment benefits, the digesters benefit, and the lakes benefit. So it's worked out really nice, and we were one of the first to do this. So it's a good thing it worked out, because it was we knew it would work out in theory, but you know, we made quite an investment, and if it wouldn't have worked out, that wouldn't have been a good thing. But what's nice is we were able to be the first, and so now a lot of other places around the state are coming and taking tours and looking at what we're doing and learning from us, and more people will do this and benefit, and the whole environment will benefit. So yeah, this is just some of the stuff we're talking about here with the amount of gas that's offset, just the different various projects that we have. And is that it for the slides, Scott?
We got the, please join us.
Oh, okay. As I said, you all are our inaugural slideshow here. The first time we're doing it this way. One of the things that we've done, and I wanted to, was it Zoe's? Yeah. So we created an office of energy and climate change, so we can, you know, not only do what we're doing in county government, but help others do the same. Both people in the business community, other units of local units of government. And most of that is through information sharing. So we created what we call a Sustainable Leaders Collaborative, and you're invited to join. Local governments come together with us, and we share information. We have school districts, we have local units of government, because we have a lot of folks that would like to do this work that say, you know, oh, we'd like to have some solar panels, we'd like to be more efficient, but we don't know how to finance it, or maybe we can't afford that. The good news is there are a lot of ways to be able to do that, a lot of financing mechanisms and ways that you can do renewables and be able to pull it off financially up front, and then benefit from, you know, as we all know, operating dollars are scarce, and so the fewer operating dollars we have to pay for our gas and electric bills, the more there are for the services that we want to provide. And you know, so we've had a lot of, you know, we've got McFarland is building the first net zero energy municipal building. Oregon just opened up a net zero energy school. We have a lot of different places doing energy efficiency and finding out, again, both for units of government and for businesses, ways that you can do renewables, and for businesses especially through something called a PACE loan, you can implement energy efficiency and renewable projects with a positive cash flow and no money out of pocket up front. So we're really trying to help people just by sharing that kind of information. So if there's anything we can do for you, any information-wise, feel free. We also give out what we call Climate Champion Awards, and I want to give a shout out to Zoe's Pizzeria, because they were a 2021 Climate Champ, because if you've ordered their pizza, you may know they deliver with electric vehicles, which today with gas at $4 plus or minus a gallon, it's pretty nice to be able to be driving an electric car, I'm sure. So yeah, so that's kind of the overview of what we're up to with our lakes and with our environmental work. And if there's any other issue you wanted me to address, if you want me to address it tonight or get more information back to you, I'm happy to just make myself available. So thanks for the time.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Does board members have any questions?
I have one question. What happens to the phosphorus that is collected with the Suctimate program?
Yeah, so that they take out, it's in the muck, right? So they don't separate it from there. And every location is different. So what we usually do, like what we did in Dorn Creek, we took it, and there was some county land not too far away that had been, I think it had been an aggregate mine at one time, and we purchased it. So we took it and piped it over there and dewatered it, dried it out, filled in the areas that we wanted to fill in order to do the land restoration, and then cover it with topsoil and seed it over with prairie plants. So that way it sequesters that carbon underneath there, so when it rains it's all prairie on top and it can't get through and it doesn't wash it out. So each location is a little different, but we look for a similar fix like that, where we can make sure the phosphorus is locked up and doesn't go anywhere, but also use it for a useful purpose.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Others?
Yeah, I'm curious. I like what you're doing with the dredging and all that sort of stuff, but what I'm wondering is, you know, when we do all of this in Dane County, what happens when you get down to Janesville, Beloit, you know, because obviously if we've got a lot of water here and it's flowing in that direction.
Yeah, no, it's
just passing it along.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm told when I ask that question that, you know, that the Rock River, et cetera, that downstream can handle the increased flow, because basically, while it's a lot for us where it is, when it is, the system can absorb it downstream from us.
Okay. So there hasn't been a need to engage with those other communities?
No, no one has expressed concern that I'm
Okay.
aware of, but yeah, it's a good question. It's an important one. You don't want to flood your neighbors
No,
down to
I
the sidewalk.
I don't think you want to flood any neighborhood.
That's right, yeah.
Agreed. What year did Suctimate start?
Boy, I
Roughly?
think it's been about, the pandemic always confuses my sense of time. I want to say 5 years, Scott, I think about 5 years ago.
So when you made the initial investment, because there weren't other providers, was that a significant investment in the equipment? And
Oh,
hiring
yes,
staff?
millions of dollars in equipment and staff, absolutely. We do, is you know the difference between mandated and non-mandated services. Most of the lakes work we do is non-mandated. We do it because we feel the need to step up and do it because other people aren't or don't have the ability to do it. And it's just so critical for our quality of life here.
If there was a hot agenda item for you right now, for the county, what would that be? Obviously, this is all good.
Yeah, yeah.
But if there's a hot thing that you see on your plate right now, what is it?
I'll be honest with you, trying to figure out what the heck the economy is going to do over the next 6 months. We're really concerned about inflation. We're very concerned about how inflation is impacting folks' ability to afford their housing and to afford food. You know, we saw during the pandemic, record use. I'm sure you saw it here too at your food pantry, in people needing food pantries. Now, we all kind of assumed that would subside once the pandemic subsided. That hasn't been the case. It's actually been increasing quarterly since. And, everyone's best guess is it has a lot to do with the price of gas, the price of food, and people who have needed food pantries in the past need them even more. A lot of our neighbors who haven't needed them in the past are needing to turn to them now. So we really have our eyes on the economy and people who might be just in that real precarious place that is putting folks, and we'll just have to, we're trying to prepare on our end to be ready. We're looking at what else can we do for the food pantries, et cetera, and for people who are vulnerable, but we'll be keeping close tabs on that.
Perfect, thank you. That wasn't meant as a softball or a hardball, that was just a question.
No, that's a good question.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah. I had a great question this morning. I was talking to a Kiwanis clubber at noon, and one of the guys said, "Okay, you just talked about all the successes you're having. What is your tell me about something that wasn't a success."
Did you defer to Scott then?
Yeah.
All good.
I said, "Oops, look at the time."
We really appreciate you coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So,
Yeah, it's good to see
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have discuss and take action on contract with Nuance and use of ARPA funding for police department to test software license, equipment, and training.
It's a mouthful. I know.
I'm going to take it that Adam is taking this one.
I'll take this one. So, just a brief kind of overview. Obviously, police departments, we create a great deal of reports. We rely very heavily in the past. When I first started, we would type our own reports. Then we worked into dictation, where we would be talking to a tape recorder. Our front office staff would be typing those reports. But we haven't really grown our front office staff at all, and we continue to add duties to their list. And so recently, we have tried this program a number of times over the year. This is a talk to text. When you talk into the machine, the computer's typing it for you, and you're seeing it real time. And the technology at the time, a couple years ago, wasn't very good. We decided to take another crack at it. I saw it at a conference, and we just completed a month-and-a-half trial with 3 of our officers, and they have told me that it's working very well. It's nice to be able to see that right away. It's saving them time, because over the last couple of years, we have struggled during COVID with absences in our front office, or people deciding to change jobs, or they go on vacation, and when they do that, that is a tremendous amount of work for one person to try to keep up. And the first thing that goes is dictation. And we go back to our officers and we say, okay, for this period of time, until further notice, you are going to type your report. So if they type like me, it's not super quick. But that's a lot at the end of an 11-hour shift when they're coming back to the PD and they're spending 2 hours in there typing a report, and they're tired. They just worked all night or whatever it might be. And we are paying a tremendous amount of overtime to do that because of the timelines that are required of us. So this program is our hope is that this will take less time to dictate. We can stop going back and forth every time somebody's on vacation. And my overall hope is that this can delay us having to hire a third full-time person in our front office. So we did the month-and-a-half trial, very positive feedback. And at that time, they gave us a price to do it for a 1-year program. And it was right around like $13,000. That's equipment, training, and licensing. The licensing is just under $10,000 a year. And I went back to them and asked if they could give me a 1.5-year price, so the rest of this year and all of next year, to give our department a true trial of what this would be like, to see is it really going to provide enough relief in our front office that they can stay better on top of what they're doing and delay that hiring down the road. So we had some money left over in the building study fund that was much cheaper than we had expected. And we're asking that we use that money and a little bit extra to do this 1.5-year trial, if you will. The idea that if this works the way that we think it will, we would be back in 2024, asking for licensing fees again to continue with it because we believe it's going to be successful.
Questions for board members? I just have one. Go ahead.
I have one. I just want to verify that this will meet the criteria for the funds that they want to use from ARPA. Okay, thank you.
So you said the key word for me was delay. What do you mean by delay? Are we talking years, months?
Well, we don't really know that for sure, and that's part of the reason why we want to do this. Right now, I mean, we've had a lot of trouble keeping somebody for a while now. We'll have them for a year or two, and then they'll either move on to a different job, and we've started over, and then we have this part-time position, which we filled twice, and they have left each time. So really, we're struggling to truly get a good evaluation period together where we're full staff, and we have this part-time person, and kind of see where things go. So I think this will be a very telling time. I would say if without this, you would expect to probably see me asking for an office position in the next couple of years. And my hope is that could delay that a bit.
And this may help with retention.
Correct. Well, that is part of it. We do hear quite a bit when our people are working that it is, there's different levels of work for administrative assistants, and we expect them to do a lot. There's a lot for them to do, and then when one person's gone, we're getting further behind at times, and this will hopefully help us keep up.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move to approve the contract with Nuance for the Waunakee Police Department to talk to tech software, equipment, and training.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next we have discuss and take action on parking facility partnership with Waunakee School District at 710 South Street. Todd?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We've come a long way on this one. We've had a lot of discussion about potential uses for the building, the impact of those uses, and some logistical issues, literally ownership issues related to the upper parking lot of the former library building. And we've talked about that before, but it involves the requirement for the village to revert to that upper parking lot, 15 spaces, back to the school district in the event that a non-village hall user uses that building. And we're looking at that as a potential outcome, a likely outcome for that building. So I've been in discussions for months with the school district about how to address the upper parking, looking at both their needs and the needs of our users at this facility. And admittedly, both the school district and the users of this facility are growing and feeling the impact and need for parking. So this truly was a matter of a commodity need for both groups. But we've reached a consensus, working with Randy Gutenberg, some of our staff team. We've come up with a conceptual proposal that Randy Gutenberg's school superintendent indicates to me the school board is receptive to. So I think it's fair to say that on a conceptual level, there is full school board support for what's proposed here. If you look at page 39 of your packet, you'll see one piece of that solution, which would be a modification to the school's current portion of the upper parking lot. If you look at that exhibit, you'll see there's really kind of an awkward curb that separates the former library parking from the school parking. By removing that curb, reinstalling pavement and some restriping of the parking area. And I'm going to give credit to Aaron Yankee, our village engineer, who scoped this out and laid out and put in the layout here. Aaron proposes that we can certainly add 8 parking stalls to the school district's upper lot. The cost estimate for that is about $3,500, right, Aaron? Essentially in exchange for that addition and the village's contribution to complete that project with our lower parking lot work that we'd be doing this summer, the school district conceptually is willing to agree to lease those 15 stalls back to us. We haven't talked numbers, but I'm assuming it's going to be one of those $1 long-term approaches to a lease. Those 15 spots would be retained for the users of the former library. The other thing we'd have to do is reach agreement on how we're going to collaboratively plow that space and then make agreements on long-term maintenance, as that pavement has to be removed, repaired, improved. Assuming that we're still making use of the old library, we need to sort of come together and say we will collaborate on those necessary improvements. So those are the aspects of the conceptual agreement that we have in place. With your support, with your support this evening, the village attorney and I would work then collaboratively with school district officials to craft all the necessary agreements that would put this conceptual agreement into full effect.
Can you please read the comments that were sent to you?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Chris. I shared this information with the food pantry and WNC. Cheryl Gurman from the food pantry shares, quote, even though this piece does not directly affect pantry, we fully support this option and see it working well for WNC and the food pantry to have dedicated parking for our service organizations. Please assure the village board that we will work with WNC on clear signage, and the food pantry also feels comfortable, and that the food pantry also feels comfortable moving ahead on our contract as soon as you have the agreement with the district completed. From Lisa Humanek, Executive Director of WNC, dear members of the village board, I apologize I couldn't be there in person at your July 18th meeting to offer my comment regarding the parking facility partnership with the school district. We're thrilled that the leadership of the village and school have developed a possible solution to the parking challenges that exist at the former library site. We appreciate the meetings that they had with representatives from both WNC and the food pantry to discuss needs and alternatives. As you're aware, having access to all 15 parking spaces adjacent to the upper level of the former library building would be an essential component should the neighborhood connection relocate there. Knowing that this is now a possibility helps us tremendously in moving our feasibility study forward. Most importantly, we're happy and hopeful that this will make it possible for our friends at the food pantry to move ahead with finalizing their lease with the village, as we know they have put much work into this planning and are eagerly anticipating their move. We appreciate your consideration and hope that the concepts meet your approval.
Okay.
So the motion then that I crafted for you this evening, if you are comfortable with it, would be to authorize the village attorney and village administrator to prepare for approval necessary documents and agreements based on proposed concepts for parking facility partnership with the Waunakee Area School District at 710 South.
Here. So moved. Okay, we have a motion by Gary Hertzberg.
Second.
Or voted.
Can I second and ask a question? Or I'll just...
We'll second it and then ask your question.
So this is coming back to us, and the school board has to formally approve this? Yeah.
Correct. Do you want to talk about the agreements we would expect to have put together?
So we have an existing lease agreement that you've approved with the food pantry that, in all likelihood, if this is able to move forward in the way that Todd described, we probably don't need to make any changes to that document. It already anticipates that we need an agreement with the parking, with the school district on the parking, but I think, as indicated in the email, essentially, if we get this worked out, you know, their perspective and our perspective is the food pantry lease is probably done. We're going to want to work on a lease with the neighborhood connection, in all likelihood, with the exception of identifying a different area of the facility. It's probably going to look almost identical to the one with the food pantry. Then we're going to have to, based on the existing MOU that we have with the school district, you know, we will need quitclaim deed the land where the parking is back to the school district. Then we're going to need to have a lease, and I think probably it's going to make sense to put into the lease document with the school district all of the other items that Tom has discussed. In other words, we'll have an obligation to do certain improvements to their parking area. They'll need to grant us the right to go on there to do it. Then we'll have a lease that indicates that we can utilize, and there's obviously a lot of details here. My understanding is the school district is going to want to, our ability to utilize the upper parking area is going to be dependent upon the tenants, which frankly is pretty reasonable. I mean, and if it's the neighborhood connection or the food pantry, it sounds like everybody's on board with that. Then we're going to have to deal with issues within the lease related to plowing, long-term maintenance, things of that nature. But I think it can probably all be done in one document. It's probably going to benefit both parties to have it all done in one document.
I guess I just heard people like, all right, my own, I hope the parking isn't like the one thing holding this up right now. Obviously there are other things to make happen and things take time, but I'm thankful that we could find this solution, and this is a good idea. Kids park in that striped thing anyways, so this looks good. I just don't want to wait for a meeting when there's like people that need the services in these buildings. So.
Well, the one thing I would say to that, I mean, it is important to the food pantry. I mean, I understand that they want to move, but it is also significant to them to see this lease get done. So I think everybody wants to move at a reasonable pace, but it's not just that this is an issue between the school district and the village, and this is somehow holding somebody else up who's ready to move in right away. They need this to be done before they move in.
Okay.
Lisa's letter, the part where she talked about feasibility study, what feasibility study is she referring to that they have to go through, and what is the time frame, if you know this, of what that feasibility study is going to look like? Well, I'm a little uncomfortable spending our money to redo all this and get it all taken care of and then not having them there, because their feasibility study doesn't work.
The flip to that is that they were uncomfortable proceeding with expenses related to architectural review and design for their use of the building without knowledge that the upper parking would be available to them. So they pushed the pause button, although my understanding in talking to Lisa and having directly met with the subcommittee of their board looking at this move, that she has support of her board to proceed with these discussions, and generally, at this point I can say generally it's been received favorably by the WNC board. But certainly because they had to push that pause button, they haven't completed their analysis of what's going to have to happen upstairs to be ready for move-in ability, if that's a word. Bathrooms, doors, whatever it is, office arrangements are all part of the analysis that they now are ready to do.
Okay, and with that said, Brian, you described all those things. What's the time frame typical time frame you're anticipating for what that's going to take?
2 months to get the documents done and approved.
Can I throw a wrinkle into that?
No.
Essentially a wrinkle that might require the board to do some level of trust fall of sorts. Aaron can speak to this, but our contractor, can you talk about the schedule related to our paving contractor's work this summer?
Yeah, I mean, we can do this, but we're going on to another agenda item, right?
Oh, is that related to? Oh, okay.
And you can do that. I mean, in other words, you all can say, look, we'd like to know what's going on with the other agenda item before we take action on this, but I just want to make it, just want to make clear.
Is everybody good with that?
Oh, yeah.
Retweet what you said, yeah.
All right, so we bid out our pavement rehab project back in February of 2022, and Painted Dolan won that project. They did the streets down by Spawn. And all those streets, they also have Sue's parking lot coming up at the end of July that they're doing. Back in March, we approached Painted Dolan about holding their current prices on that project to do this additional parking lot work, and they agreed at that time to do it. As you guys know, aware that those prices have really taken off
I was gonna say, to be clear, the parking lot work, can you explain that?
So there's the lower north side parking lot, the lower one that comes around the back side with all those diagonal spots. We threw those quantities in there. Using Pandolin's numbers from February, that's about $73,000 worth of work to that lower parking lot. And conversely, to do the south side, the 8 stall expansion, you're looking at about $3,500. Again, these prices were held from February. Pandolin hasn't really squawked about holding those prices. They're willing to do this work. But they want to do that project with Stu's parking lot project. So they go over and do all the concrete at Stu's, build a center parking lot, then go over to the old library, pull that pavement, work on getting that to site, and then pave both of these parking lots at the same time. So we're kind of under the gun here. We're kind of the last hour. With that being said, the prices we received in February are really good, especially looking at where prices are going right now for paving. Right now we're at $68 a ton. Right now, all indications would show that that'd be $100 to $105 a ton. So we're probably looking at a 30% increase if we don't take advantage of P&D's prices at the end of July.
Okay.
So can you get the work done with the school so that this will work?
Yes, I mean, you have to understand that these are two governmental bodies, and just from a meeting standpoint, I said 2 months is fast. Now, if everyone is motivated, like for Todd just asked me, if we want to get this, I mean, it seems to me like the work, I mean, my opinion, you know, I mean, the work on the lower level probably needs to get done no matter what. They can, even if we don't have the documents executed or approved, to the extent that they want the village to jump, the school district wants the village to jump on their property and do the work as shown in the sketch, that they can give us that approval via email. So, I mean, we'll move as quickly as we can. If it turns out that it's not all done, but they're motivated to have that work done, then we can use different mechanisms to jump in there and get it done. I guess the question, and to try to answer a couple of other questions, I mean, as I understand it, the neighborhood connection does need to still go through its evaluation. The food pantry has already gone through its evaluation. So worst case scenario is the village would spend the money to get the $3,500 worth to create the new 8 parking spots, and the food pantry is going in. Now, you know, the feasibility study that the neighborhood connection is doing, you know, theoretically we don't know what's going to happen, but you would get, the food pantry would be in that. So at least you would have that user that you already approved the lease. Just one thing to keep in mind. And then if something happened with the other entity, you'd probably have to work with somebody else that the school district would sign off on.
Okay.
Is the school district supportive of this? Like, they know about the floor? That's not.
They know about the upper parking lot issue?
Yeah, I guess, is it WNC, or if, you know, this is taking too long and WNC can't, or, you know, find another user, or then we've made them there for, you know, 8 spots and then they won't even give us back the top part? Yes, is my.
Well, that theoretically is the risk if you do the work before you get it, yes.
Okay.
Now,
but
boy, you'd hope that would not happen. I mean, and I'm not suggesting it would, but yes, you've kind of hit a potential risk.
And that's maybe me just like not being in the loop, but I guess I feel like the parking is what's held us back.
Well, it has.
And that's valid because it's, you know, they need parking. I try to park in that lot every day in season and it's busy, so I get it. I just also don't want us to lose WNC's interest if we're having these back and forths over 4 parking spots and there's plenty of open parking on the other side of the school. Maybe that's a little too.
Well, that's oversimplifying to say it's over 4 parking spots.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to this that we've been having to navigate based on what was in the past and not knowing what was in the past documents and either side really agreeing on all that. So we've worked through all of that, which makes sense for us to both sides to do. And I think we're at a point now where we can move forward. I mean, the price of it, if it's going up 30%,
yeah, let's do it.
Or more, even potentially.
Probably more.
You know, that amount itself is probably more than pay for it, but, and is the school district gonna be opposed to us giving them additional parking potentially? I don't think so. I was only just gonna say maybe if we don't have them come in or something doesn't work out, that they would pay that cost, you know, after the fact, but we don't, it's not a big enough number, I think we need to get into that. We, so to speak, and delay anything for it. So that's just my opinion on this.
I do have sort of a, I guess, a little bit of a concern about the motion itself, because one of the things you were talking about was, you know, who's going to plow it, who's going to maintain it long-term, all those sorts of things. Those have a potential cost, and we don't know what that cost is going to be.
We'll give it, it's all coming back to you.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, everything would come back to you.
Yeah, this motion isn't authorizing us to execute it, it's authorizing us to proceed in preparation.
Okay. Then we're all good.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
No? Okay.
Good. Yeah, to make a motion to approve the following.
Yeah, he's already done.
Done that.
Okay, now we just vote.
Any other comments then? All right, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. So did we take care of two of them or just one of them with that
I
motion?
know.
Well, we did the first one,
That's what I thought.
but I'll certainly move the second one. I will move to approve the following actions related to the former village library at 710 South Street, proceed with paving project for resurfacing and sidewalk installation of lower parking lot, and proceed with upper parking lot modifications to add 8 stalls to the existing school district lot, and proceed with road and contractor, driver heating and sheet metal for HVAC repairs and replacements, and authorize solicitation of bids for interior bowl level remodel.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion, second. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
That Sammy may have set a new land speed record on item review, that's good.
All right, next we have discuss and take action on aquatics planning process. Consider referendum.
It's just as, let's do this one just as fast.
Oh, explanatory statement.
I'm kidding.
Well,
You can make a motion, I guess, right away, but we probably should.
yeah,
do a little-
you have before you the explanatory statement that was the, sort of the final step to then set us as staff on course with the marketing work related to educating the public. So we addressed, I think, a couple items the board brought up appropriately in your last meeting. It's here ready for you to approve.
Board members, questions? On the statement?
No, it looks to be what we agreed to me. So I would make a motion to approve the explanatory statement as proposed and related to the November 8th, 2022 general election advisory referendum regarding construction of a public outdoor aquatic facility.
Okay, we have a motion by Phil Wells.
Second.
Second by Joe Zitzelberger. I have one question, and that is just, once this is done, what is our time frame for public education awareness and the materials that go with that? Do we have a time frame? Since are we trying to get stuff out in September, October? Who's going to be doing those, and when are we going to see them?
Well, that will be our gathering of staff task and assignment for the next week to assemble that schedule. You can expect an update. I don't think there will necessarily, well, there may be action part of the board if we have expenses related to the campaign. So you can expect to hear back from us and at least updates at your next meeting on our schedule.
Okay, I'm good with that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have discuss and take action on possible land swap with Durst property owners, including related agreement for costs and on timing and construction of potential trail improvements. Brian?
Sorry, we don't have a recommended motion. You guys can just do right out of the gate.
Okay. Well, you'll try harder next time.
So this is something that you've seen, an item that you've seen before. So just to kind of bring you up to speed, the last time that we were here, we had a discussion about trying to reach some type of agreement with Mr. and Mrs. Durst regarding cost sharing. And ultimately what we decided was just let's go out and get appraisals of their land that they would potentially convey to the village and the village land that would potentially be conveyed to the Dursts. And so we went through that process. We received the appraisals. Because of the restriction that is on the village-owned land, the Department of Natural Resources had to approve those appraisals, and they have approved the appraisals. And as the information is indicated in the packet, the land that the village would potentially convey to the Durst is on a per acre basis a little bit less than the land that would be potentially be conveyed to us. So we've received some information from the DNR too. It sounds like the DNR is on board with this concept of a land swap. If the village board is going to move forward with this, and this is how we tried to break it out within the staff cover sheet, there's a few things that we're going to have to do with the DNR to satisfy the DNR process. That includes putting together legal descriptions, likely some type of a certified survey map that would get approved, that would identify land that would go from the village to the Durst and vice versa. There's a number of other administrative steps, I would say, that the DNR requires that are identified within the packet. I guess and then we would want to get some type of cost sharing agreement with the Durst as we move forward. And then the third category is the path itself. And so, a fundamental question is, do you, and I should step back, when we agreed to go ahead with the appraisals, it was understood on our behalf and on the Durst behalf that just because we went ahead and got the appraisals does not bind either party to continue down this path. We essentially said, let's get those appraisals and then put a pause at that point. Now, what we want to do moving forward is really up to the village board and obviously up to the Dursts. A fundamental question is, do you want to proceed with the land swap? You have the ability to not do it at this point. You also have the ability to gather more information and then still maintain the ability not to move forward, as do they. The one thing I want to remind folks of is the Wisconsin statutes do not allow us to condemn land for a path, and unlike for roads, for example. And so I understand that we kind of started this process because we have a fence that's on our land right now, and the village still has the ability to say, we're not going to go ahead with the land swap, we just want to have our land back and move forward. My understanding, though, is that we do want to have this path. We do value, and I think the appraisals actually would bear that out, that the value of the land for the path is more valuable than the land that we have right now. And so this provides an opportunity, really, to try to do some type of land swap so that we can have that trail. But that's a fundamental question for you to ask yourselves as part of the discussion tonight. We do have the ability to go into closed session. If we go into closed session, it is going to be limited strictly to, okay, if we're going to have a cost sharing agreement with Mr. and Mrs. Durst, what are the terms that we want to see in there? And then you would give direction to staff, go ahead and put that together. And if we go into closed, I can answer whatever questions that you want. I would prefer to have that discussion in closed session for marketing purposes. I'm certainly willing to answer whatever questions you have in open session, whether it relates to the Durst, the DNR, the path, or just the whole concept altogether.
Okay, so we can have a discussion about those three topics.
Yeah.
And we want to keep the closed session potentially if there's any negotiation as far as
a cost
what
sharing.
we would want to done. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't usually go first. You guys want me to go
Well,
first?
go first.
So I'm actually very in favor of getting this path through here. I think it's a great addition to our community. Paths are heavily used that we have. People are walking more. It's emphasizing exercise, but this is an opportunity for us to include and get a lot of our nature involved with those paths. It also connects all the way down to Governor Nelson's, where this would tap into an additional path and just give options for our community. And the Conservancy is right there. It's used, but it's not used anywhere near what it could be used. This path is actually a great connection to that. It's one of, I think, our hidden secrets that just isn't used as heavily as it should be. I'm not sure, is this the map right now?
Yeah, let me
For where the path
just,
is?
you want me to explain the
Yeah.
exhibit here? So one question that staff and then our engineers, and Aaron, I'm glad you're here again, did was work to answer the question, can a path work through this corridor? will this allow for it? I'm gonna zoom in and then and sort of move this along and show you that projected path area. This is the beginning segment of path here that is adjacent to some existing trail networks within the Conservancy. The trajectory follows existing village-owned property. Oop, this is a little tricky. All right. Phil, this is when you say some comment about my abilities or lack thereof. Okay. There we go.
Must have heard my comment.
Follows.
You click on the little hand.
What's that?
Click on the, not like, you're on the mouse, you're gonna click on the one left to it.
I got it. I'm going to do it right here.
Okay.
I got it. I got it all set now.
Okay.
So, following village-owned land, still on village-owned land, this trail would actually need to cross the creek twice. Once here, heading to the north side of the creek, at which point it would continue on to land that we would acquire in the swap. The purple is the land we would acquire in the swap. The orange is the land that the Durst would acquire in the swap. So then continuing along the creek corridor on the north side of the creek. I'm upside down here. That's weird. Follows the creek. It actually also follows an MMSD easement where they have piping underneath this area. So when the time comes for us to proceed with the path, or maybe MMSD to proceed with work along their corridor, seems to be a moment when we would align as organizations. I don't know when that time is, but you can see that line potentially lining up. So it follows there. This is a very steep bank up this way. So we would have a second creek crossing here that then brings it up to the existing path and crosswalk at Mill Road?
Yes.
Yep. So that lays out the corridor. It also lays out for you, shows you, demonstrates the land areas that would be swapped. Aaron, did you have anything to add about the engineering analysis we've done?
Yeah, so the engineering analysis is at the 100,000 foot level, so it's big picture. It shows that a path can potentially go through there and estimate some costs. All that would have to be, you know, if you wanted to move forward with a path, then we need further survey work and to refine the alignment and refine some of those costs. But what they put together is a big picture look at it.
And we used Strand to perform this analysis for us to identify the feasibility.
So with that, where the path is currently here, is that what has been established where the path is going to be, or is that still?
That still needs to be, where it's exactly going to be, that still needs to be determined.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be in the general vicinity, but it could vary.
Okay. I just remember hearing we were talking about this at length with several people. Where the circle is on the Durst property, not the water, but the circle next to it, down, over.
Oh, right there.
That circle, that's where there was potential talk of it switching over to the other side of the creek right there too, and coming down. So just.
Oh, you mean, so coming.
There was some flat land, yeah. Basically
So
turning
coming
around
up
and going
here and
across
then.
the creek. Yeah, it's very steep right before that. So when the steepness goes away is where that crossroad. But that doesn't really, I don't think it's really germane to our conversation tonight. I'm just wanting to make sure everybody knows, or that I want to make sure that it is stone where that's going to be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most expensive, one of the most expensive things about this is actually crossing the creek, because you're going to need an actual structure down there, and you're going to be out of the floodplain, or the floodway down there. So I mean, that's, as long as we're not crossing a third time, then we should be fine. This is crossing twice.
Okay. Sort of a strange question, but is there parking available on Mill Road or on Woodland in this area at all? Thinking not. But
People actually park on Mill to use that sledding hill over right where the cursor is right now. So
Okay.
people actually park down there and use that to sled.
Whose land is that right now?
What?
Whose land is that?
Well, it's a mix between Westport and Waunakee,
Where the hill is. The
where that sledding hill is. Yeah.
So is that legitimate parking on Mill, or is that?
There's no parking signs.
Okay.
So they are parking legally.
That's not a yes answer.
It's legal parking.
It's legal
From
parking.
your perspective, it's not a no answer either.
Con, could you back that up to our retention, our little pond that's in the park now?
Back this way?
Yeah.
Okay, I can zoom in there.
Isn't there another place that we're gonna cross the
Yeah,
creek
three
right here?
cross.
That's 3 places
Yeah, right
we're
there.
gonna cross.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a crossing there?
Yes, that's an
Yeah.
additional crossing.
Now, is
There's 3
that,
places we're gonna be crossing.
are one of those existing?
No.
Well, there is a bridge there, but I don't think it would meet current
Yeah.
standards.
Is it that one or the other one? Or the other, I think it might be the other one, okay.
Good catch, Phil, thank you.
Other questions, concerns?
I mean, I can give you maybe my history of, back in 2000 probably, sitting with Tom Wilson and Don Tierney and Terry Angie and Kevin Even, and Sue, I'm not sure if you were there yet, but we talked about trails and connectivities and how do we get Westport and Waunakee trails to connect. And that was 20-some years ago. Those meetings were important because people had kind of a vision to say, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but hey, let's save some land here, or save some land here, and think about all this connectivity. I kind of compare this to the village center. I remember being on the library board in probably 2003 talking about, dreaming with the people on the library board, someday we're going to grow out of this place and we need to have a library and we need to think forward about, how big and what would it look like. And so to me, this is kind of like the library, kind of like the village center. You got to plan ahead, and when you have an opportunity, we had the opportunity with the canning company to buy that land, and we hopefully have the vision to do that, do the right thing, and build a beautiful village center that everybody in the community uses. I think the library, that went on for 15 years. But in the end, we got a great library, and the trail behind the library, and I probably get more positive comments about the trail that continues on the west side of Madison Street, because when I talk to people in that 6 Mile neighborhood, they go, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing that ever happened. Because now we walk down, we walk through town. So these trail connectivities, I think 6 Mile Creek is the community's biggest asset. And in some cases, we don't use it very well. Castle Creek Conservancy, I think it's 37 acres. Probably one of the biggest parks we have. Most underutilized park land in the whole village. It has one access point. I've been around here a long time. Nobody goes in there. Tim Luttrell and the park committee, he and volunteers have done great things cleaning it up. Phil and his groups, worked hard back in there, building piers and bridges. That's a beautiful area back there. But people can't get access to it in the community. And it's a shame. So to me, this is one of these opportunities. I do a lot of bike riding around Waunakee, and my wife walks every day and rides bikes. But a lot of times she goes to Pheasant Branch. I go to the forest. Because boy, you can get on a trail there, go through neighborhoods that are connected, go along their creeks, boardwalks, everything is connected. And we have the opportunity with this trail connection, so somebody in 6 Mile Creek could go down to Castle, behind the library and get down into Castle Creek, come out on Mill Road and get on the Woodland Trail, go to Governor Nelson, go underneath them, go to Pheasant Branch. This connection, and you know what? We may not build this for 10 or 15, 20 years. But if we don't take the opportunity to get this land connection, it'll never come again. So to me, this is one of the most important things this community may do for a long, long time. And we may not build a trail in my lifetime, but somebody at some point, if we approve this, at least has the opportunity that's my,
I absolutely agree with you, Gary. I've been out biking through the village myself, and there's not a good way to get, from a lot of the village over to that woodland trail.
and think of the kids that live in Savannah and Arboretum and all those new developments out on the south side. For them to get on the trails now, they go right there to Woodland, and they can go down through Castle Creek, come right out where, Knightsbridge by the schools. I mean, it's just a neat opportunity for the community.
So I've taken a lot of time, I know Sam, you work a lot in the creeks, cleaning them. They are one of our biggest assets, I agree with you, Gary. I see, we talked about the Cohen-Esri project and behind it and how we could potentially get a trail. If we get a trail over to 113, under there we can potentially get all the way over to where the library trail is. So you're connecting from Cohen-Esri all the way to the other side of the community with the trail network. So as we have opportunities, I hope future boards, as Gary said, we may not be alive even, but I hope future boards will consider moving down the path, no pun intended, of connecting the paths in the future. And this is, in my opinion, one of our first steps and most important steps to get it done, because I think this is going to be the hardest component.
And it doesn't cost us anything. It's a swap. In the end, it just gives us capability that we would never have.
Okay, I understand everything that everyone's saying. I agree trails are important and connecting all of our trails would be great. But I'm wondering if we're jumping the gun just a bit, because we have, there's two steps that I'd like to see before we vote on this. One, I'd like to see the results of the current parks, I don't know the technical term, the current Westport Waunakee comprehensive plan where citizens put input. I would like to see that completed before we vote on this.
The one that just closed?
Yeah, the one that just closed. I'd like to see the information from that, and I would also like to have this go to the Parks Committee, and I'm sure that they would be in support of this, but I think most of the time we have things go to committee before it comes to the board. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I would just like to see the entire Parks Committee give their blessing on this project before we vote on it, and as well as look at the comprehensive project, or plan that they're working on.
Okay.
And there were two citizen members of the park committee who asked to see the engineering study before the plan is complete. So I think it'd be good to do this in tandem. This is basically exactly what they're asking for. So I think it'd be good to have it go there before we vote on it.
I believe Sue has it on an upcoming agenda, right, Sue?
Yep. Yep. So I think we should discuss that first, would be my opinion.
Can we go backwards a little bit here and just look at the reason that this all came to be in the first place was not so much that we wanted to put a path here, correct? It's that there was actually, encroachment or whatever?
Well, I would say this, my understanding is the village has been looking at a path in this area for a long time.
I've walked that property since before 2000.
The more recent reason it came up, like not, the more recent reason is the one that you'd identified.
Okay. So maybe you want to talk about that, because I know that we were with Westport. Westport was going to be in with us, and we had a challenge, which was the Durst at that time. Otherwise, this probably would be moving along already, but that's where this kind of stopped the last time. And now, yes, this situation has put us in a little bit stronger position, we'll just call it that way, or at least a position to negotiate with them.
Yeah. Well, I would refer to it as you have a motivated other party at this point.
Correct. Versus at that time it was not.
Yeah.
But Westport and Waunakee both were, yes, we want to do this. So is that fair to say, Sue?
Yeah, Gary's conversation earlier, it was about 20 years ago, Tom Wilson and I wrote a grant for the potential of the purchase of the property, and the property owner decided they were not interested in selling.
So if we were to decide that we didn't want to move forward with this, we still have that other issue that would have to be resolved.
We would discuss and pursue enforcement issues.
Okay.
And that's certainly a viable option. I want to make sure you guys all are clear that we cannot condemn land for a path.
In another jurisdiction,
No, in the village of Waunakee.
which this isn't.
Okay, but even so, I mean, well, our eminent domain authority for public purposes do extend beyond our jurisdiction, like you can condemn for a road in a town, but we can't condemn anywhere in the state of Wisconsin for a trail.
Can't condemn it for a cow pasture either.
That is a true statement. So I guess my question, kind of based on some of the discussion, is, you know, the most that we're asking for tonight is authorization to go ahead working on a cost sharing agreement with the Durst. Now, you certainly can say we don't even want you to do that at this point, or you can say, yeah, go ahead, because there's, and I don't know where everyone lands on, you know, move forward at this point or not move forward, that you just had a discussion. But I just want to make clear that we're not asking for approvals of anything final tonight. What we're looking for is a discussion. Even if you don't have a, you know, you do not have to vote at all at this point on construction or creation of the path. Really what we're looking for is, do you want us to move ahead, me to work with their attorney on a cost sharing agreement that would ultimately come back to you?
I would like to see us go ahead with that so that we can have the option going forward. Even if the, you know, even if the current park committee says no, 5 years from now, we might have a new park committee and say, this land, you know, now we're thinking a little bit different. Now we want to do it.
Well,
and now you got to go back to square one again. Why don't we solve the issue?
And I don't want to be critical of the Parks Committee or any other committees, but Parks Committee doesn't make the decision, the village board makes the
No, it
decision.
wasn't. But we're going to follow what they would like.
Maybe.
There is a
We
process.
generally do.
I'm not saying that you, I'm just saying that you are the controlling authority.
But at least if we went ahead and solved this land issue, we would have our options open.
Oh, for
forward.
certain, yeah, because there's two different issues. Do you, I mean, potentially, you can definitely acquire the land now and choose not to construct the path until 15, 20 years down the road if you want to.
So that's why I'd like to see us go ahead and work towards acquiring the land, hold off on the other decisions.
But again, just to be clear, we're not even asking you to okay the acquisition of the land tonight. All we're looking for is, we would if we reach some type of cost sharing agreement, we would bring that back to you, and then if you approve that cost sharing agreement, then we would start doing the things like getting a surveyor to do legal descriptions for the land, getting a map drawn so that we could go through the process of the land swap. We would still be coming back to you even after approval of that cost sharing agreement for the ultimate approval to do the land swap.
So it
It's
seems that,
rejected by the DNR, so.
Well, everything that, I would say this, if the land swap is what has been identified now, even though no one is bound by it, what we have heard from the DNR is they would be very much in favor of that.
Yes, they're similar.
Is there any reason, I'm having a hard time coming up with any negatives to doing this land swap.
I can't think of
This-
one.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
So I would make a motion for the staff move forward with approving that.
You don't want that.
No. All we want right now is, for example, a motion to authorize staff to negotiate a cost-sharing agreement with the Durst that will ultimately be brought back to you for your
I'll
approval.
second what he said.
So moved.
That's what he said.
Yes.
Okay,
To go on the
before
process.
that, do we not need to give you what we want to negotiate?
Yeah.
Well, so I would say this.
Or are we giving you latitude to negotiate that?
Well, first of all, it's coming back to you.
Okay.
Now, the approach that I think that we're going to take is, and to me, there's a separation. They have made clear to us in the past that they do not want to pay for costs related to the construction of the path. What we have paid for, split up to this point, is essentially, well, everybody's paying for their own attorney's fees, and then costs associated with the land swap. And so the way that, I mean, we can talk about this in closed session, but I can also tell you, I mean, I don't think I'm really giving anything up by saying this. Essentially, we would take that same approach here with the cost sharing agreement. So there's a number of steps that we would need to go through as a result of having to get the DNR approval for this land swap. And it would seem to me like those are the things that need to be shared between the parties.
Okay, so you've got a motion and you've got a second?
Can you repeat your motion, please?
He made it. Motion to authorize village staff to move forward with negotiations of a cost-sharing agreement with the property owners.
That's what I heard Gary say, and I said.
I have a question before we go any further. Okay, we've.
Hold on one second,
Okay.
just to make sure I'm in the right rules. So we have a motion and a second, yes?
Yes.
Okay, now Tom.
Okay. This is, probably wouldn't happen, but I just want a clarification. We had an encroachment onto public land, or village land. And so if we purchase or swap the land and pay the difference that we would need to pay because it isn't exactly free.
There actually would, the way that we're approaching this, just to be clear, is there would not be, we would be getting, it would be a straight swap.
Oh, okay.
Land for land essentially because of how it's
Okay, so
valued.
you're saying a straight swap instead of paying for the difference that was in our, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
now I understand that. Okay, so let's say, it sets for 15 years. Is there a possibility that we could end up back to where we are now? Where over time, what I'm saying is, would we need to do something with the land that is the villages such as Planet to Prairie or something to, have, doing something with it so it doesn't get encroached upon again?
I would say that the first answer is no, you wouldn't need to do anything different than you do with your other land. This is the only time that I'm aware of, other than maybe some examples of people putting like playground equipment in our stormwater facilities. This is the only time I've ever heard of somebody encroaching on our land. And so, we could do what you said, put prairie grass and things of that nature. I think we would also just have a very stern discussion with this individual that says, look, we've created this CSM now that now has made this land part of your land. Don't go beyond that. Put your fence there. I would say this, the risk of someone encroaching on a part on land after this land swap, I don't think is any greater than anybody else encroaching on any other village-owned land.
I find that funny because it's happening all the time.
I guess I'm not aware of other places where people are encroaching on our land. I haven't been informed.
No, I'm talking about like what you said, the playground equipment and
Yeah,
it's all
well, if it makes you
town.
feel any better, that happens in every community.
Okay.
Grass clippings are the biggest offender,
Okay.
actually.
Okay, so I'm just trying to visualize if there's something that it probably wouldn't be usable by the public generally until the paths are completed or trails or some bridges are put in or whatever. And I'm just trying to figure out a way that it could possibly be used rather than just set idle until the trail bridges are put in and things. So that's just my comment, okay? And I know it's up for motion, so.
No, comments are, that's what we're for.
Okay, I just hate to see it set idle. What I'm thinking is prairie grass, wildflowers, I don't know, but parks people would have more of an idea than I would.
I think that's an option in the future, and I would tell you that land's been sitting idle since it was there, and
Yeah.
that's part of where the encroachment.
Yeah, but
just
it's
sitting idle.
been being mowed and things, so, I would like it to be utilized for something other than what's been going on with it at this point.
It could provide more ecological value than it is currently.
We can make sure there's not as much runoff potentially going into the creek. There's all kinds of things we can look at for that. I don't think we need to make that decision tonight, though.
Right, but I just wanted to know what the possibilities were.
So the motion that we are approving, or is up for vote, suggests that we're splitting these costs with them equally?
Everything would come back to, well, first of all, the agreement would come back to you, but that's the thought process, is we will split the cost associated with the land swap 50-50 between the two parties.
In essence, they don't want to pay for the engineering and setup for our trails and things that we're.
That is a true statement.
That's what they don't want to have to pay for. We're basically saying we're going to split the cost of looking at this and making sure it's even swap and.
Yeah, essentially, and there are costs that because of even if we were just going through a land swap that did not involve the DNR, we would still want to go through the exercise of creating the legal descriptions, probably surveying the land so we could specifically identify. So those costs exist. There's other costs related to DNR, all that come back to the land swap concept. And that's what we want to get an agreement on how we're, because we certainly don't want to pay all of it ourselves.
Yeah, correct. Are there, I guess, I'm assuming these are costs, I might be assuming incorrectly, that we pay for and then we're asking reimbursement for?
Well, we set it up, the way that we had it with the appraisals is each appraisal cost $3,000 and one invoice was sent to them and one invoice was sent to the village, so it wasn't a reimbursement.
We're not going to be fronting this and then just hoping.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's multiple ways that that's what we'll have to kind of try to work through.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I move to adjourn.
Second by Joe. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Now that.
Carla? Did I have a